2025 NBA Draft is shaping up to be one of the best drafts of this generation, with the likes of Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, and many more ready to add on to the huge amount of promising young talent in this league. In what is already shaping up to be one of the best offseasons of all time, this draft just adds more juice to it. Since this is my first 2025 mock draft I'm doing on this channel, I'm not going to include any potential trades I think will happen, but keep an eye out on that in the future mock draft video. With that being said, let's jump right into it. And with the first overall pick, I have the Dallas Mavericks selecting Cooper Flagg, forward out of Duke University. Flagg is as generational of a prospect as you can get, as I have a pro comp of Jason Tatum for Flagg. Defensively, already well established, and offensively has all the tools to succeed in this league. The outside shot came along very well after a slow start, and his rebounding and playmaking ability will be well showcased on this Mavericks team. Nico Harrison lucked out with this pick and gets to add Flagg to another generational number one overall prospect in Anthony Davis. Up front court of Flagg and Davis is an absolute nightmare on both ends of the floor for opposing teams. And once Kyrie is added to the mix around January time, this team is going to be in a great position to go on a deep playoff run, barring injuries of course. Flagg will heavily benefit from playing behind AD and Kyrie, as he'll get better looks offensively and not have to worry about being a scoring threat right off the bat, similar to how Chet Holmgren has developed nicely on OKC. With second overall pick, I have the San Antonio Spurs selecting Dylan Harper, guard out of Rutgers University. The Spurs have been in the rumor mill in trading for Giannis, and this pick would absolutely be involved in any Giannis to Spurs trade. But for now, I have no trades happening, so the Spurs keep this pick and take the next best guy available in Dylan Harper, who I have a pro comp of a taller Jalen Brunson. I know they just traded for De'Aaron Fox at the trade deadline, but Harper is around 6'6" and can play the two guard spot well. There is going to be questions about the spacing, but when you have two creative ball handlers next to Wemby, scoring is not going to be an issue for them. The son of five-time NBA champion Ron Harper, Dylan is going to be put in a similar situation to Flagg and Chet, where he's going to be the third, even fourth scoring option on a nightly basis in his first couple of years, and that will definitely help him find his shots and develop nicely with this young Spurs team. With the third overall pick, I have the Philadelphia 76ers selecting Ace Bailey, forward out of Rutgers. The 76ers could easily be looking to trade this pick, but if they don't, I believe they go with Ace Bailey, who reminds me a lot of Michael Porter Jr., who was my pro comp for him. Bailey is capable of being a deadly three-level scorer with the way he moves so smoothly on the court, and is just easily able to find his shot. He's a little shorter than expected, supposedly 6'10", but really an inch or two shorter, but that shouldn't be much of a problem for either him or Philly. They had a tough year with Embiid not really playing healthy and PG looking like one of the worst contracts in the league, but at least Maxey and McCain look to be a very promising backcourt of the future. And similar to Flagg and Harper, Bailey will be playing behind Embiid and Maxey to at least start off his career, which will help him a lot. Bailey is seemingly a project player, but he had some monster performances in his lone freshman season, and if he can get those open looks in this offense, he's going to thrive and Philly is going to be a threat in the East, as long as Embiid is healthy. Big if on that one though, of course. With the fourth overall pick, I have the Charlotte Hornets selecting VJ Edgecombe, guard out of Baylor. Bro, this class is so stacked. Edgecombe is a great athlete and has a high level two-way potential in this league. My pro comp for him is a lighter Anthony Edwards. Edgecombe's ability to get to the rim and the line is elite, and that outside shot got better as the season went on. He also showed a lot of promise on the defensive end and would be an amazing addition in Charlotte. Hornets have talent with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, and adding Edgecombe gives them a legit trio to work with in the future. They just got to stay healthy, which is a big ask for this team, and realistically, they still probably don't make the play-in next year with the East getting better, but they still have a chance, especially if VJ lives up to the hype. At 5, I have the Utah Jazz selecting Trey Johnson, guard out of Texas. A 65-loss season ending with the 5th overall pick is brutal, but goes to show how the new lottery odds don't favor tanking teams anymore. Trey Johnson is still a great pick though, as my pro comp for him is Allen Houston. I consider Johnson to be the best shooter in this class with the volume he had at Texas. Nearly 7 attempted threes a night, yet completed them at a near 40%, which is utterly insane. Utah is going to love to add him to their offense. I know they already have an abundant amount of guards, but expect guys like Sexton and Clarkson to be moved along with a lot of the rest of the team this offseason. Keontae George has shown a lot of promise, but I believe he's better fit for a 6th man role on this team rather than a starting 2 guard, while Trey slides to that starting 2 spot. Jazz fans are going to be in for another long season, with Lowry, Kessler, John Collins, and the guards I mentioned before all possibly gone, but Isaiah Collier had a very nice second half of the season, averaging 12 points and 7 assists down the stretch, and him and Johnson will at least be a fun backcourt to watch as they hope for a top pick in next year's draft. With the 6th overall pick, I have the Washington Wizards selecting Con Knuppel, forward out of Duke. Another team that got unlucky with the lottery odds, but shouldn't complain with this pick either. My pro comp on Con is Gordon Hayward, and not just because they're both white 6'7" wings, but both are great 3-level scorers that can play make and defend well, scoring Swiss Army knife and are a seamless fit on most teams. Another top shooter in this class, Con is going to fit nicely in Washington and their young core. They could go for a center here, but I think they would rather try to develop Sarr as a center for the time being. A starting lineup of Carrington, Poole, Con, Bilal, and Sarr has a lot of potential to make some noise in the East, and with vets like Smart and Middleton off the bench, and Kispert, Keyshawn George, and even AJ Johnson, vibes are very high in Washington. At 7, I have the New Orleans Pelicans selecting Kasparas Yakuchonis, guard out of Illinois. The Pelicans missed out on Harper, but shouldn't be mad selling for Yakuchonis, who pro-com for me is DeJounte Murray, funny enough. Yakuchonis is a taller point guard who is a great facilitator, but struggles with his outside shot. Defensively, he has some flaws, but has the frame to hold his own. Especially if he's playing next to Herb Jones, that shouldn't be a problem at all. New Orleans has desperately needed a point guard since Lonzo left, and hopefully Yakuchonis is next up. I don't expect Zion to be traded, and if this team is healthy, they could definitely at minimum make a push for the play-in in this very stacked Western Conference. With pick 8, I have the Brooklyn Nets selecting Kamon Malawach, center out of Duke. Brooklyn still has Nick Claxton at the moment, but I do expect him to be moved this offseason. He regressed in a lot of areas this season, and with teams like the Lakers desperate for a center, he could get a good amount in return. As for Malawach, I have a pro comp of a taller Ivica Zubac for him, a towering rim protector and can run the pick and roll very well. The Nets will bring back Cam Thomas and most likely also move on from Cam Johnson, so the duo of Thomas and Malawach could be very fun to watch in Brooklyn. And with the Nets having 3 other first round picks in this class, can make some nice picks to help Jordi Fernandez coax his team into the play-in. At pick 9, I have the Toronto Raptors selecting Carter Bryant, forward out of Arizona. This might seem like a reach here at 9, but hear me out. Bryant is a major project player as he was behind a very talented Arizona team, but he's got a great frame at 6'8" with a near 7-foot wingspan, and his 3-point shot has a lot of potential. My pro comp for him is OG Anunoby, another reason for the Raptors to take him. Masai Ujiri loves taking risks in the draft, and especially loves forward prospects with a freakishly large frame and offensive potential. Think Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby. Brandon Ingram is finally going to play for this team, and with Barnes and Barrett too, Carter Bryant isn't going to be expected to start from the beginning, and will be a part of a great developmental team in Toronto. I love this pick for them. Pick 10, I have the Houston Rockets selecting Derek Queen, center out of Maryland. Houston had a lot of success with their 2 big lineups with Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun in the playoffs, giving the Warriors a lot of problems with crashing the glass. The Rockets are potentially in the market to trade this pick and other assets for a star, but I don't expect them to make any big moves this offseason. Queen, who my pro comp is Wendell Carter Jr., is a great rebounder and defender and has some potential of developing an outside shot. He's also better suited to play the 4 if I'm being honest, which does allow Ime to play those double big lineups with him and Sengun. With the playoffs he just had, I also wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Warriors gave Steven Adams a nice contract, so might as well try and continue the success of the double big lineup with this pick here. With pick 11, I have the Portland Trailblazers selecting Jeremiah Fears, guard out of Oklahoma. Portland had a weird season where they were actually really close to making the play-in before they just gave up and missed it. Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson showed improvements in their game, and guys like Denny Avdia and Toumani Camara proved to be staples to this team. I'd expect them to move on from Anthony Simons at least, and possibly even DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams too, and go with the lineup of Scoot, Sharpe, Camara, Denny, Klingon, with Fears as the 6th man. My pro comp for Fears is Devin Harris, and I know the outside shot isn't there for Fears yet, but he did shoot 85% from the line in his only season at Oklahoma, so wouldn't be surprised if he develops it. Portland is on the rise with their young core, and even though the West is incredibly stacked, if their guys continue to develop, they could make a run for the 10th seed. At pick 12, I have the Chicago Bulls selecting Jace Richardson, guard out of Michigan State. Chicago losing the number 1 overall pick off a coin toss is quintessential 2020's Bulls, and this team is in a limbo state. They finally traded Zach LaVine at the trade deadline this past season, and I wouldn't be surprised if Vucevic is traded as well this offseason, maybe even Kobe White. Josh Giddey is going to get a nice contract after the season he just had, and with Montas having a solid rookie season, Jace is a nice pick here. Measured shorter than expected, but he plays bigger and has a great 3-point shot. My pro comp for him is Monta Ellis, and assuming they don't bring back Lonzo, will be a nice fit next to Giddey in the backcourt. The Bulls got a solid future with this core, but still stuck with Patrick Williams' terrible contract. Pick 13, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting Igor Demon, guard out of BYU. Atlanta may not have their own pick in this draft, but they do have this pick from the Kevin Huerter trade back in 2022. And with this pick, they take a facilitator for the second unit in Demon. My pro comp for him is Josh Giddey, as Demon has a super tall frame for a point guard and has great playmaking potential, but does struggle shooting the ball. The Hawks did trade for Caris LeVert at the deadline, but he is a free agent, and I think they'd rather go with Demon for the long-term future. I don't expect them to trade Trey, especially with this core, and in a weak Eastern Conference, can make a lot of noise with Jalen Johnson coming back healthy again. At pick 14, I have the San Antonio Spurs selecting Danny Wolf, center out of Michigan. The first non-freshman to go off the board, the Spurs desperately need backup big help for Wemby. Sochan is too small to play the 5, and Wolf is an experienced player that can rebound and has some playmaking ability to his game. My pro comp for him is Mo Wagner, as Wolf can be a nice spark off the bench with potential for a 3-ball developing in the future. Spurs building themselves a really nice rotation for the future, with adding Harper and Wolf in this draft, and with Wemby hopefully healthy in year 3, this might be a top 6 team in the West. At pick 15, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder selecting Liam McNeely, forward out of UConn. I highly doubt OKC is going to have this pick by draft night, but if they don't trade it, I think they will go for a guy like McNeely here from an elite basketball school and a highly ranked prospect at the start of the season. McNeely started the season off very well, but did struggle to shoot the ball down the end of the stretch. If he does develop to what he could be, OKC will thrive with this pick. If not, they're not worried at all with their current core. My pro comp for him is Corey Kispert, and if that 3-point shot can really fall, this could be a great role player for a team in the future, or even the Thunder. At pick 16, I have the Orlando Magic selecting Nick Clifford, guard out of Colorado State. This offseason, the Magic need to do everything they can to address offense to this team. Defensively, they're one of the best in the league, but they cannot space the floor at all, even with the addition of KCP this offseason. Nick Clifford, whose pro comp for me is Josh Hart, does everything on the court and can shoot the ball well, given good opportunities, which is bound to happen when playing next to Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. The Magic suffered a lot of injuries last season, and this season, fully healthy, they can be a top 6 team in the East and nab a playoff spot before the play-in games. At 17, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Colin Murray Boyles, forward out of South Carolina. Wolves are doing such a great job constructing their team, taking a risk with Rob Dillingham last year, which is actually going better than people think, and now taking Murray Boyles here at 17. With back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances, the Wolves have a lot of big decisions to make this offseason. Julius Randle is expected to come back around a $30 million annual contract, and same with Naz Reid. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is expected to leave in free agency, and with Jalen Clark or Terrence Shannon Jr. set to be his replacement, they need a backup forward here, with how many guards they have on this team. Murray Boyles reminds me a lot of Draymond Green defensively, which is my pro comp for him, and I know Green is a top 5 defensive player of all time, and realistically Murray Boyles won't reach that ceiling, but his frame and tape shows that he's very capable of being a high-level role player in this league, especially on this Minnesota team. Pick 18, I have the Washington Wizards selecting Thomas Sorber, center out of Georgetown. Wizards got a nice vet in Marcus Smart and his pick in exchange for a couple draft busts. Great trade by this front office. Much better from the Tommy Shepard regime. I had them taking Khan earlier in this class, and although they want to develop Sarr as a long-term center, they do still need a backup big, and Sorber fits well with that. My pro comp for him is Roy Hibbert. Great verticality and really an old school style of play, but fits well as a backup big for this young Wizards team. Pick 19, I have the Brooklyn Nets selecting Asa Newell, forward out of Georgia. The second of the Nets pick in the first round, they go Asa Newell here, whose pro comp for me is John Collins, as Newell has great athleticism and rebounding ability, and can also score well. With the Nets most likely trading Cam Johnson this offseason, Newell will slide into that 4 spot next to Malawach in the front court and bring in the new young era of the Nets. And they still got 2 more firsts to go in this round. At pick 20, I have the Miami Heat selecting Nolan Traore, guard out of St. Kenton, France. Getting this pick from the Jimmy Butler trade, the Heat need a point guard here, even with Davion Mitchell looking nice since his acquisition from the Raptors. Nolan Traore fits very well with this team, but he does get a pro comp of Killian Hayes from me. Overall, Traore really struggled a lot last season in the French League, but in his last 20 games, he really found a stride with his scoring and playmaking ability, and with a role off the bench for this Heat team, can be what they need for the second unit. I wouldn't be surprised though if the Heat try and make a move for a star or move this pick in general to try and find a third next to Hero and Bam, But if not, then a point guard here is absolutely the way to go here at 20, especially with Rozier not being good anymore. At pick 21, I have the Utah Jazz selecting Will Riley, forward out of Illinois. This Jazz needs some wing scorers, with Cody Williams not showing much promise after his rookie season, but Riley showed a lot of promise at Illinois in his lone freshman season. My pro comp for him is Jalen Wells, as Riley moves laterally well and is really tall for a wing player. The three-point shot will come along as he develops with the rest of the young team in Utah, and hopefully some of these guys are actually developed for their sake. At pick 22, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting Noah Essengay, forward out of Ratio Farm Ulm in France. The Hawks have another pick in the first round that's also not originally from them, and they take Essengay with this pick. He reminds me of Toumani Camara, who is my pro comp for him, and at 6'10 has the potential to add to this dangerously defensive core being built around Trey. This might be a bit of a fall for Essengay, but I'm wary with raw international prospects developing, like Tijuan Salon and Charlotte. But the plus side with these kinds of prospects is that they're entering the league at such a young age, so they do have time on their side. And with the Hawks core that's coming into its own, if he does just end up developing as a solid backup player, that's all this team needs for him to stay here long term. Hawks are also a team to look to be a top 6 team in the East next year, and that conference as a whole is starting to be good. At pick 23, I have the Indiana Pacers selecting Rasheer Fleming, forward out of St. Joseph's. I don't really see Indiana keeping this pick, as they have some flexible assets in Mathurin and Jarace Walker that could be moved for a better piece to completely fortify this Indiana rotation. But if they do keep this pick, I can see them going with Rasheer Fleming, a bigger wing out of St. Joseph's that can shoot the ball very well and defend. My pro comp for Fleming is Dorian Finney-Smith and would seamlessly fit in this space-out offense with Tyrese Halliburton leading the way. Indy will continue to build on its super strong depth, and Carlisle can legit run 12-man rotations if he wants to with this pick. This team is going to show these last 2 years aren't fluke runs. At pick 24, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder selecting Hugo Gonzalez, forward out of Real Madrid. Once again, don't see OKC keeping this pick, but here, why not take another project player from Real Madrid and maybe develop him? Gonzalez's pro comp for me is Dyson Daniels, a jack-of-all-trades type of player that will be a nice bench piece if OKC does decide to keep and develop this pick. At pick 25, I have the Orlando Magic selecting Cedric Coward, guard out of Washington State. No shot Cedric Coward falls this far in the draft, but most teams above Orlando don't really need two-guard play, and Orlando continues addressing its desperation for offense with this pick. One of my favorite prospects in this class, Derek White 2.0, which is my pro comp for Coward, is an elite shooter that is a hustler defender as well. Climbing his ways from Division III basketball to becoming a Duke Blue Devil before he shined at the Combine, Coward is a gritty player that will be a key piece in this Magic offense in a year or two. If Coward does develop the way I believe he can, the Magic will be comfortable moving KCP, Jet Howard, and Cole Anthony for some frontcourt help, potentially bringing back Vucevic. Expect a video on Cedric Coward soon. At 26, I have the Brooklyn Nets selecting Ben Saraff, guard out of Ratio Farm Ulm. The third first-round pick of this draft, and having back-to-back picks here, Brooklyn goes for Ben Saraff here, a crafty tall guard who can play well. Defensively, he's active and reminds me a lot of Goran Dragic, who is my pro comp for Saraff. Brooklyn can potentially add a guard next to Cam Thomas in the backcourt and can try and push Thomas to being the primary point guard, which they've been trying to do at times. At 27, I have the Brooklyn Nets selecting Noah Penda, forward out of Le Mans Sarthe. If you have 4 first-round picks in a draft, you can absolutely afford to go for a guy like Penda, especially near the end of the first. My pro comp for Penda is Thabo Sefolosha, as Penda is a high-energy wing that in a small role has the ability to shoot very well from 3. Establishing your potential starting 5 in a single draft would be impressive if the Nets can pull it off with these picks. But at the minimum, these guys project to be solid role players for this team if they do end up making a big move for another star. Pick 28, I have the Boston Celtics selecting Yaxel Lendeberg, forward out of UAB. Boston has a lot of moves to make this offseason, and this pick can very well be involved in a trade, but if they stay here at 28, why not take the top-ranked transfer prospect of the 2025 class in Lendeborg? Committed to Michigan, he also excelled at the Combine and is in a prime position to be drafted in the first round this year. Sitting at 6'9" with a ridiculous 7'4" wingspan, reminds me a lot of Scotty Barnes, who is my pro comp for Lendeborg. Similar to Barnes, Lendeborg is great at getting to the rim and rebounding, and has a tint of playmaking ability to his game. Defensively, Lendeborg is a shot-blocking machine and will be absolutely lethal in Joe Mazzulla's offense, especially if he can get a three-point shot going. A fun pick for Joe to develop next year as Tatum misses the full year. At pick 29, I have the Phoenix Suns selecting Walter Clayton Jr., guard out of Florida. Expect Kevin Durant to be moved this offseason. Bradley Beal will most likely be waived, and potentially even Booker too if the price is right for Phoenix. But this pick will definitely not be moved. Let's say Booker is not moved. Phoenix needs to add someone to help him in the backcourt, as neither Beal or Tyus Jones did a good job of that last year. Clayton, who just helped Florida to a national championship, is a perfect fit there, as he's a great shooter and can relieve Booker off ball handling duties when needed. Would be a fun fit for the future, assuming the Suns don't completely blow it up. And finally, at pick 30, I had the Los Angeles Clippers selecting Taha Pettiford, guard out of Auburn. With a first-round pick, the Clippers need to go for some offensive guard play, and Pettiford is a perfect addition here. You could make the argument for LeBaron Fillon to go here instead, but I think Pettiford is more established as a shooter and would be a better fit in this offense. My pro comp for Pettiford is Jeff T, as Pettiford has got a good touch from 3 and a nice floater game, has playmaking ability, and defensively he's very competitive. The Clippers will not really be making any big moves this offseason, and just hope that Kawhi and Harden can stay healthy. But if one of them does miss some time, Pettiford will be a nice boost offensively to relieve some of the pain. And that is the end of the first round of my 2025 NBA mock draft. I won't do a second round section like I did with the first round, but I will put it on screen for those curious about my thoughts on it. And that is the end of my first 2025 NBA mock draft. A lot of prospects in this class I'm very excited to watch in the NBA. Very curious to see what moves teams will make before the draft. Maybe some of the top picks in this class will be moved before they're even drafted. Crazy stuff is about to happen this offseason, and I'm all here for it. Thank you for watching, and catch you all in the next one.